to give us maximum time.
Yes. All right. Copy and pull together.
And should we do Q&A at the end or as we go?
However you want to do that. And
I don't mind as we go. It's a because I'm good at if I know the question will come up later, I'll say so.
Okay.
Sorry, the content for the answer will come up later. That's fine.
Perfect.
But this is not a speech. Yeah, it's a chat. Get like we're sitting around a pub having a beer.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
There's Roberto. Good to see you, my new Los Angeles friend.
Yes, sir. Mr. Anand, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Hi, Roberto. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Good. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Give me 1 second.
I had a question if we are on mute. I hope everybody can see me, hear me, and everything. I have had technical issues before. Just being recorded. Good question. And
recording in progress.
It is now. Okay.
Yeah.
Just to make sure. It's being broadcast to the Facebook group, to LinkedIn, to my YouTube channel. So we're getting some exposure to the different channels that I have going on. So we're going to have some fun here. All good, I can hear. Good. Glad to hear it. I had technical issues a couple months ago. I think it was with Sanjay of all people. I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out.
David, it's not as bad as my speech I gave last week at a conference in the UK. There was myself in one room and another speaker in another room. I was controlling her slides and she was controlling my slides.
Oh, wow.
It was terrible. I was talking and I know my speech and my slides kind of flow while I'm talking and they were jumping ahead one or two. It was driving me mad.
Oh, wow.
Driving me mad. I was just constantly clicking backwards. And at one point, I completely forgot what I was saying. I lost the thread. And I just said to the audience, I'm really sorry. I just don't know where I am. I've forgotten.
The best thing you could say, actually, just.
Well, yeah, I was being honest. And the good thing was the audience was listening because they all told me where I was.
Oh, okay, that's good.
But yeah, as a speaker, it's the worst thing that can happen. Well, one of the worst.
One of the worst. I had once where we were doing a medical association dinner, and the pharmaceutical rep that preceded us, every time he kept hitting he kept tending to advance the slide, kept tending him back to the beginning of his presentation each and every time. So he had to keep going back forward, and then he kept going back. And we lost half the room before we got a chance to speak. So I'm like, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah. This was just so frustrating. So frustrating.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we are 2 minutes past the hour, so let's go ahead and officially get started here. I'll introduce our speaker here today, and I'm really excited because years ago, when I was getting started in the business, I was part of the $1 Million Roundtable mentoring program. And as part of that, you're able to receive audios and videos and such. And one of the audio recordings I received was of our speaker of how to work a room. One of the best presentations that I had heard, and I really appreciate it. And so when I got this Facebook group going, I reached out to everybody that I'd ever heard speak. I said, would you like to be a part of this and contribute and such, and just see where everything went? And I'm really thrilled that I've got a personal friendship now with our speaker, and which is just overwhelming for me. So let me introduce him formally here. Bhupinder Anand is Managing Director of Anand Financial Architecture based in London, England. He's a 26-year member of the $1 Million Roundtable with 21 years as top of the table, and has twice been awarded UK Independent Financial Advisor of the Year, and is one of the profession's favorite speakers, as I said, having spoken at major conferences all around the world, including the $1 Million Roundtable annual meetings many times. He also runs the Advisor Masterclass coaching program and is author of Smashing the Glass Ceiling, Breaking Through Your Personal Barriers to Success, which I'm looking forward to seeing here in Amazon in the United States. I'm holding my breath, sort of, figuratively. Bhupinder has a unique insight into the understanding the importance of creating value for clients and how the words and processes we use can influence the results we can get from our clients. He has a unique brand and will share practical ideas with you on how you can differentiate yourself from your competitors. So please welcome my friend and speaker, Bhupinder Anand, and I'm looking forward to our class today.
Thank you, David. And I'm imagining the applause.
It's there. And if it's not there now, it will be at the end, I promise.
That's if they stay.
That's right.
Good. So, David, what we agreed was that this was not going to be a speech. This was just going to be a chat over a beer, literally, and with people listening in. And so I've suggested or asked in this presentation, David, that this is just a bunch of people, a bunch of fellow professionals having a chat, having a beer, having a coffee, whatever people prefer, and chewing the fat. And in doing that, all I'm doing really is being the kind of the chrysalis of that, in sharing my story, my experiences. But if people got questions, put your hand up, as it were, virtually. Let's interrupt. Not a problem. And what I would do is, if I think that what you're asking I'll be answering as we move along, please don't take it bad that I'm saying that. But if I think it's a great question to answer, then we'll do that. That's fine.
And
so yeah,
we've got 4 channels of chat because we have Zoom. I've got Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
Oh, wow.
So we'll see where it's coming in from, and we'll figure it out from there.
Fine. Well, I'll let you handle that then, David. Right?
Okay, sounds good.
Over to you, David. Ask me a question.
Oh, over to me. Well, I would love to hear the beginning of your career. How did you get started? Why did you choose this career? And, how did you get started? Because everybody launching into the career is always the toughest part. And we can all learn from everybody's different stories and struggles and triumphs. If you'd share some of that with us, I think it would be very, very enlightening for a lot of people.
Yeah, and a lot of people do ask me that as to how I started off, and I have to rack my brain and go back in history and time to try and remember. But I think one of the key things that I can share is that I didn't fall into this business. I didn't treat it as something that I would do part-time. I didn't treat it as something, oh, there's nothing else I could do, or someone introduced me and said, why don't you try it? I wanted to be a financial planner, a financial advisor. In those days, a life insurance agent. Why is the question? Because my father always respected his life insurance agent. And as a family, we always respected it. He was a chap called Brian Morley in the UK, for those people that don't know, and he represented Sun Life of Canada. And I remember Brian as a child, me being a child, not him. I remember Brian as a child being an integral part of my father's success. He would help my father in a business, not just in terms of insurance, but being as a guide, being a trusted advisor, which is a phrase we take for granted nowadays, but he was that. He was invited to our parties, family functions and weddings. And I always used to look up to him and say, who is this guy? He turns up at these things unannounced. He's not a family member, but we treat him like that. This is a respected occupation. He's a powerful person because of the influence he's making on people. I like that. And that's something I would like to do. And so I started from that perspective of wanting to be in financial planning. Now, after I graduated, and by the way, I took a year out. I was on the Students' Union as a voluntary year, which was probably one of the best years of my life. I learned a lot about communication skills, organization skills, and won awards for public speaking and things like that, even at a young age. It all helped to build the person I am today. And in those days, I'm going back to the 1980s, there would be advertising for trainee brokers. Now, everyone thought this was to be a stockbroker, but I thought, yeah, it's a good way to get into financial services until you went for the interview and you realized it was life insurance. Now, that wasn't a problem, but it was just interesting how the approach was being made. And David, I went into one of those, you'll like the story. And they asked me to fill in an aptitude questionnaire. You know, those kind of things where there's no right or wrong answer. It's to establish your personality. You can't fail an aptitude test.
Well, I think I've done that a couple of times, but yeah, okay.
I failed it. The manager at the branch said to me, looked at the answers and he goes, "You're not cut out for this career." And I said, "Well, why is that?" He said, "You're too polite for this business. You will never be successful in financial services." Wow. I took that away from me. And I tell you what, today, David, I wish I could have a beer with him and just see what he now thinks and where he is and where I've managed to achieve through all the great things and great people that I've met over that time. But going back to then, so I thought, okay, if it's going to be so difficult to get into the front line of financial planning, I tried a different route, which was to work for an insurance company servicing independent financial advisors. So I was what we call a broker consultant. My voice is broken now. I was a broker consultant. So I would be on the road trying to encourage independent financial brokers, advisors, to use my company's products when they were talking to their clients. And that's where I cut my teeth. That's where I learned what this business was really about. Because I learned from those that were good at what they were doing. I also learned from those that were not so good at what they were doing. That doesn't mean I'd learned how to do it, what they were doing, but I was learning what was keeping them back and what was keeping those others forward.
Yes.
So that was my start to the career. And I'll tell you a bit more in a second, but yeah, it wasn't falling into it. It was choosing to go into this great profession. And I've never looked back since, and I've loved every single day, every single minute of what I do. Hasn't been easy. And a challenge is a good thing if you embrace it that way, but it's been a huge amount of fun.
Absolutely. And
so, long answer to your simple question, how do you get into
And so when you're getting started, how, now you went from what we would call a wholesaler type position.
Yeah.
Now you decided to branch onto your own, or you went with an agency, however you did it. But how did you begin to create awareness and build your brand? Because you have a very unique story on that. I'd love for you to share that.
Sure. So yeah, I did that job as a broker consultant for just under 5 years. And frankly, I was getting bored because and I'm going to brag a bit if I may. I was too good at it. I had developed great relationships with the panel. Frankly, I can say this now, I couldn't say at the time. I was only working 3 days a week.
Okay.
Because my panel were keeping my target so well driven that I didn't have to work too hard. And one day I just woke up and I thought, but I want to work hard. I want to grow and work hard at a younger age, so I don't work so hard at an older age. Last bit hasn't quite happened yet.
Okay.
But certainly as an intention. And of course, as I was saying, I was looking around me and seeing who was successful, who was struggling, and what was working and what wasn't working. And so from that, it was more a case of a feeling, that's a feeling, that I could do a better job than most of the people that I was seeing. Now, it's not an arrogant position, but it comes from observing and saying, do you have the confidence? Do you have the self-belief to know that you can make it in this profession? Because the minute there is any element of self-doubt, this profession is not for you. And it is a challenge. And it is a challenge that once you get over and it can take years, don't get me wrong, it can take years and there can be setbacks, but suddenly it starts working. And all the hard work and the rejections and the problems you face earlier on suddenly become easier. But I try to be a bit more smart and try and be a bit lazy if I can, which is, I thought if I'm going to start in this profession, and note the word I keep using, David, I don't call it an industry. It's a profession that I'm in. And I treat it to be a profession for me because I am a professional. And that's how I think we ought to behave. And anytime someone tries to say this is the life insurance industry, we need to pick them up. It's not an industry. We're not, making widgets and breaking metal. We are professionals, and we need to be seeing ourselves as professionals in order for others to feel the same. So how did I start off? Through observing those that were successful. There was one person in particular, a good friend of mine called Ivan Massa. Now, Ivan was my top producer on my panel. And what I'd seen that made him successful was niche marketing. He had created a brand. He had created a reputation in the marketplace that he became the go-to person. What was his niche market? Was the gay community in the UK. He branded himself as the financial advisor to the Pink Pound. Now, it was a great niche market. It is a great niche market because the occupations that these people are particularly in are successful. They make good money. They don't tend to have the outgoings that people would have with children, etc.
Right.
And so he identified himself as niche marketing, and I saw what he was doing in terms of creating a brand. So when I stepped out to be a financial advisor, I said I need to create a niche market for myself, because that clearly is how you can create a brand. It's very hard to create a brand saying I do everything for everyone. That's not a brand. Well, I guess it is. Amazon could be that, but as an individual financial advisor, let's not try to be everything to everybody. We may start that way, but we need to quickly realize that more we narrow in and focus on our success, on our niche, we can actually become more successful. So I set myself a goal, and I want to share the way that I set goals for people is by having a vision. And I do this with my clients. I'm going to share these thoughts with the people that are on this call. Have you ever, Dave, I'm going to ask you, David, a straight question. Have you ever tried to put together a 500-piece or 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle?
I'm sure I've tried it one time or another. I'm sure my ADD got in the way and I probably never finished it. But yes, I'm sure I've tried it one time or another.
Okay, well, let me finish the question without the picture on the box.
No.
No. Okay, so that would be the height of madness, right? To get a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle and just say, what is this? And start creating a picture.
Yeah.
But how many of us will live our life without the picture on the box? and we'll pick up pieces of puzzle daily to try and create a picture. How many of us will get to the end of our life and say, based on the pieces of the puzzle that I picked up, this is not the picture I wanted to create. And if I could do it again, it would be a different picture.
Right.
So taking that as an analogy, and it's a big driver for my life, is we need to have a clear vision, a high definition vision, which I class as being the picture on the box of our future. Once you've got that high definition vision, and I know that when I do my coaching, I help people plan 5 to 10 years ahead. And one of the questions I ask, and you could ask people of viewers now, ask yourself this question: where do you see yourself in your personal and professional life 5 years from today? Okay, where do you see yourself in your personal and professional life 5 years from today? And if anybody says, good question, I'd like to maybe, if the wind was blowing the right way, this might work for me. Vague language, you don't have a vision. Because your vision has got to be driving you all the time. It's at the front of your tongue, that when somebody asks you what it is, you can't stop talking. You just want to share that powerful thing that's driving you forward. That's the picture on your box.
Mm-hmm.
David, when you're putting a puzzle together, what's the first thing that most people would do in putting a puzzle together?
I'm looking for the corners and the edges.
Corners.
As Michael just said, sounds like a challenge to make a puzzle without the edges. I'm like, right there. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So the corners are what most people would start with, because they're immovable. Okay, they have to be there. They can't be anywhere else. Those are our beliefs, our integrity, our morals, our ethics. I'm presuming that those are good and strong and the right things. There are cornerstones in life. There are things that will create our future and a strong foundation to it. When people have got the corners, they then start to tend to look for the sides, because again, they're not going to be in the center somewhere. They've got straight parts to them. Mm-hmm. And when we put the sides in, we start to create scale. We start to create a framework of our lives. And when we've got that in place, David, what I find then, certainly when I do a puzzle, I don't go row by row by row by row. You look for natural groupings. Mm-hmm. The sky is blue, well, that could go up there. The trees are green, it could go down here. And you start to create what are natural groupings, and then create part of the picture. And then over time, and those bits in the picture are the elements that are in our lives: our family, our society, our community, our business, our clients, our spirituality, whatever it might be. But these are the sections of our picture. And over time, they start to mesh together. And that creates the picture of our life. So I found that analogy to be really powerful. It's a great one to discuss with new clients, because it's positioning ourselves as somebody to help them to achieve the picture on their box of their life by asking them questions. Obviously, what we then want to do is ensure the picture. We want to make sure that if they're unable to complete their own jigsaw, the family can continue to do so, because they've got the financial wherewithal to do that, to finish the dream. So that was the picture on my box. The vision I had was to be recognized as the most professional advisor to the Indian, we call that the Asian community in the UK, to the Asian community within 5 years. Okay, to be recognized as the most professional advisor to the Asian community within 5 years, timescale given. Now, it's not to say others weren't professional, but nobody had a brand, nobody had a reputation. And the Indian community in the UK is very strong, and we can tell by our Prime Minister right now, and very affluent. Again, we can tell by our Prime Minister.
I'm like, you guys have a new one? I know that they changed recently.
We can't keep up, by the way. Yeah. And he's Rishi Sunak, not, as Joe Biden said, Rashid Sunak. That's somebody else.
Okay.
And so that was my goal. That was my vision. But I needed to find the pieces of the jigsaw. And to me, it wasn't like it's in my head that I want to be this person. I need the world to know. And so I said, how do I get that message out? And so I started doing marketing work to that niche community. There was a particular newspaper called Eastern Eye newspaper, which is a weekly English language, 40,000 people a week circulation. That meant maybe 100,000 people read it, national newspaper. So I approached the editor of that newspaper, and the principle I want to share here is this can work today. Okay, just because I did this nearly 30 years ago, it still works today as a principle. So I approached the editor, and anybody starting in business and wondering how to build a brand and reputation, they can use this idea. So I approached the editor and said, you don't run any kind of personal finance column. I think you really ought to. People are interested in money, and I would like to take that position. And after some negotiation, we did. And so I became appointed as personal finance editor for Eastern Eye, and every week I would write a half-page article. I'd have my picture in there. I'd have my phone number in there. And in those days, David, it was cut and paste. I'd lift articles from the mainstream newspapers, cut them out, find a theme, and literally paste my own article. Today it's a lot easier.
Okay.
And I very soon developed a brand and a reputation whereby I'd go to a wedding or a party and people would come up to me and say, hey, you're the guy that writes in the paper. I've got this financial question. Can I ask you? And I'd say, great question, thank you. Let me take your card and I'll be in touch, but now's not the right time. But the reputation was building. That was only one piece of the jigsaw. The other piece was being recognized as the most professional. So I was getting recognized, which in its own way, and again, a learning lesson for people, third-party endorsement is hugely powerful. If you can get yourself published, and in this case, I was publishing myself by asking for the position, but getting yourself published in any kind of journal, publication, online, print, whatever it might be, is a really powerful way of building reputation. And so to finish that vision, I entered a competition. And the competition was in the financial services, run by a financial services magazine, to find the IFA of the year. That's Independent Financial Advisor of the Year. And to kind of cut a long story short, how you get there is that you submit an answer to a case study question in the form of a 2,000-word report. I entered in the retirement planning for the self-employed category. There were 12 categories. You get shortlisted as a top 3 in a category. You then get called in for an interview, a grilling, where they might change some of the issues and you've got to adapt to it. And then you go to the award ceremony. It was like the Oscars, where they'll pull the names out of the envelope and say, the nominations for this category are, and then the category winner. And then they'd say at the end of that, 12 category winners, who's best of best. I won my category for retirement planning for the self-employed, and I won the overall as well. Now, the message, David, is not that I'm bragging about winning it. Here's the message. I did that 14 months into my career. 14 months of being a financial advisor and being recognized as the #1 financial advisor in the UK. You don't get that without a vision. And that's the real message I want to bring across, is if you've got a vision, a powerful, strong, clear, high definition vision of what you want, you lay it out, you put a time scale on it, and then you find the pieces of the jigsaw that are going to get you there. And that's where, that was a catalyst of my success, was to build a brand and reputation. And then professional associations wanted to know my story. They wanted me to speak at their conferences, and it developed from there. So I don't know how long we've spent on this, and I haven't got very far into my career, but hopefully I'm sharing some practical ideas, and I'll talk to you how I bring all of that into the modern world using that skill in social media, in media.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking about me, because that's what I do. And I'm thinking about my branding, because I just launched my Social Security Millionaire.com branding. And I'm like, I haven't quite crystallized exactly where I want to take it. I just know I've got a unique message. I just got to, so I've got some more development to do based on what you were just sharing. So
I think we all have. I haven't stopped learning. It's a case of, I had a great vision then, And my vision keeps adapting. And every day I'm learning new things and trying out new things and new strategies. And my staff are just saying, stop, we've got enough. We don't need you out there anymore. But it's in my genes to just keep making a noise.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. By the way, please, anybody that has a question or a comment, make sure you put them in the comments. I'm monitoring it all. And so far,
and if you want to come on screen, please do.
Yeah, please don't be shy. We don't bite, and if we did, we can't reach you through the computer anyway.
Once I was giving a Zoom call like this, and a fly landed on the camera, and everyone at the other end just jumped. It's this huge fly.
All right, hey Frank, go ahead.
I like the idea, Bhupinder, where you were talking about high def, but also I like the idea of your first question. Did you fall into this, or did you want to be? I pretty much fell into it. I went to an opportunity meeting on a Tuesday night, blah, blah, blah. But my question to you is like, coming from, again, your education, your background and everything, the driver for you said was a clarity. I mean, to be clear on that, to be clear, in other words, it kind of puts self-doubt in the background. What is this clarity that you had? Like, for me, it's like, I always love the idea of being the trusted guide, the Sherpa, if you will, and to be of a servant heart,
sure,
without an agenda for a sale, because that actually wasn't true in the beginning. I was an in order to guy. I want to serve you so that I might fill in the blank. So can you say more about that? And because the thing is, at the end of the day, that the clarity of otherness over there is my driver. It's not MDRT or top of the table. It's, look, how can I really serve somebody at a much higher level? So
great question, Frank, and thank you for the feedback there. And totally agree. It is not about the products. We need anybody who's out there talking about a product, is on a target to sell a product, is starting their conversations around a product. You're missing the trick. And I talked about the word industry and professional. People who sell products, in my opinion, please don't be offended, are in an industry. They've got something, they need to take it off the shelf and give it to somebody else. People that are professional are saying, who are you? What are your plans and goals and aspirations for the future? And not just asking that question, but having great skill in knowing how to ask those questions. And David, remind me, I'll talk to you about how I create a visual agenda for a client meeting that brings those things out. And having soft skills, anybody could say, what's your name, what's your address, what's your date of birth? but the soft skills of who are you and what are you trying to achieve in your life? Quite often, you may be the only person or the first person to have ever asked those questions. Most couples don't even ask those questions of each other. It's great to ask them as a couple and see what answers you get. And the attitude that transforms somebody from being an industry to a professional is when you start to behave in the following way, I believe. Everybody's got opinions, this is my opinions. Mr. Prospect, Mr. Client, you need me more than I need you. That is a powerful position to be in. Not because I've got this product, but because I'm going to help you to reach where you need to get to. And you may get to where you want to get to, but you won't enjoy the journey without me. You're going to find it difficult and longer. And my goal and mission for you is to bring peace of mind in your life. And so when it's client focused, the products will sell themselves, because invariably when you're taking a client on that journey of building their picture on that jigsaw puzzle box, we've got to bring out the what if something goes wrong along that journey. Do you have the parachute in case the worst happens? Do you have the protection to keep those dreams alive for your family? And when you're talking in those terms, the products will sell themselves. I don't need to talk about products. People will bite my hands off for solutions. Now, David, quite often I say to people, I'm a salesman, but I don't sell anything. All I do is I facilitate the buying process. Note, I facilitate the buying process. I help people to plan for their future, and then along the way, they will have their own concerns that come out, but I need to protect that future. If it's such an important, powerful dream, I need to protect it. How can we do that? And perhaps we'll talk about how do I sell life assurance, where people buy it because they want it and need it, and I don't have to sell it. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, thank you, Frank. I totally aligned with you. I think for a lot of people in the beginning of their careers, it is a case of pick up the phone and talk to anyone and everyone and sell a product. But the sooner you can transition from that to the confidence, here's another great question and great point. In this business of ours, we hear no on a daily basis. We're hearing no from prospects and clients who are giving us objections. When you've cracked this business is when you say no more than you hear no. Okay, when I say no, David, I don't want to deal with you. I may not be so blunt, but I'll find a way of saying it. No, David, you don't deserve me. No, David, you need me more than I need you. It's a joy.
Can you unpack that a little bit more, Bhupinder? I'm going to guess you don't actually say that to people. You need me more than I need you.
Well, it's implied.
Huh?
It's implied.
It's kind of your persona. It's kind of like your vibe. But can you say more about that? Because in the beginning, we're talking about self-doubt and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, that was always there. Like, who am I? I mean, I need you. I need you, Mr. Client.
Yeah, and we all start from that. We all start from you. I need you because I got to pay the bills. Okay, but that self-belief and confidence, you start to ooze when you talk to people. So in terms of unpacking it and explaining it, if you don't carry the confidence in that belief yourself, it will never come across. So the first thing is internalize this. Am I a powerful person in this business? Am I really good? It's not an arrogance. Please don't take it that way. Am I really good at what I do? It's a question I ask people quite often, and it's not an easy question, but start thinking about the answer. Do you think there's a better financial advisor than you? It's a great question. Somebody asked me that once. I said, do you think there's a better financial advisor than you? And I said, equal, different, but not better. That is a position of strength where you can say, I am as good as anybody else out there. Other people might be different to me. They might do things differently, but I know what I'm good at, and you're going to enjoy the relationship. So quite often I'll say to people, I've really enjoyed meeting you, and I feel you need my help. I will say that. I feel you need my help to achieve the dreams that you've outlined to me, and I want to be the one that helps you. How do you feel about that? So ask the questions, but ask them in a very nice, polite way. I'm not arrogant. I don't ram myself down somebody's throat and say, you must deal with me. It's like, if you're not going to deal with me, who else are you going to deal with is the implied question. Mm-hmm. Because if you'd found somebody already, then why are you talking to me? Right? You're talking to me because you haven't found somebody. An open question. I get a lot of leads daily, which I'll talk about in a moment. And my opening question, why are you calling me now? What's happened? What's changed? And people say, I've been meaning to get around to it for the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. Right? And I say, everybody I meet says that. I'd wish I'd met you 10 years ago. Don't say that in 10 years' time. Let's do what we have to do now. So a great question to ask people, why are we talking now? What's happened? What's the change in your life? What's caused you to finally make the step? it all then ties into the branding and positioning, which I'll come on to again, finishing off what I started. And then having great processes in place, or as Americans would say, processes, but you'll get it right one day. So it's processes. Well, right. What happens in my office, David? Just fill in and explain.
Okay, the lights go off every once in a while. No, he's not having a
By the
power
way, it
outage.
is process. It is process, David. And by the way, we won the Revolutionary War.
Oh,
Well, I speak the Queen's English, or should I say the King's English now? Okay. And so having a great transparent process in place and sharing that. So let's go off on a tangent. Let's talk about process. How many people here that are watching this have a process? Of course you do. It's a typical 6-step process. You meet somebody, you fact find them, you do your research, you present your solutions, you process their, you implement what they want, and then you look after them and service them. It doesn't matter if you're American or Singaporean or British, whoever you are in this business, we all do that. The question is, does your client know that? Does your client know each and every step of your process? Probably not. So one of the things I did very early on in my career was create a process document. It's so simple. It's not complicated. This simply says, here's what's going to happen when we meet. Here's when it's going to happen after that, after that, after that, after that. And to be able to say, this is where we are, this is where we're going to get to, and there's a series of steps along the way. It's so simple, yet I've found very, very few people share a process document with their clients. We then take it up another level. So one of the things I talk about is how we create emotion with clients. And the cliche, but we all know it, and it's true, that people base their decisions on emotions and then justify with logic. So what I realized was my process was logical. Okay, it started with a fact finding and discovery and all of those things. There was no emotion in those languages. So now we have a process document. It is on our website. It's one of the first documents I give to people. And it's a series of steps where, yes, we've got our steps. And by the way, as you get to know me, I describe myself as a financial architect. And my process is called wealth architecture, not financial planning. And we use architectural language. So now we've refined the process to use architectural language to describe it. So for example, I don't have a first meeting. I have a planning dialogue. I don't have a fact find. I have a priorities survey. I don't do reports. I do design strategies. I don't implement. I construct. I don't service. I have a maintenance program. And so those are the architectural language, which we now take your process and my process, but make it look different, branding, because you won't find anyone else that has my 5 or 6 steps. They'll have their own words, which may not be as interesting as the ones I'm using, maybe better.
And if I may, I mean, using that kind of words, I would believe that it really lowers defenses because you're not sounding like anybody else that they've ever interacted with, and it sounds refreshed. It's something more engaging, more welcoming, that they want to engage in that process just by the different words we use. Yeah. And then what we've done on that document, I haven't got one handy here, but is underneath our process, we've got feelings. How do you feel by engaging with us on each of these steps? And the first one, what we have prior to the meeting, is that confusion and concern, confusion and uncertainty. Mm-hmm. And everybody I meet, when I start off and I say, that's you, isn't it? And they say, yes, it is. And so by being upfront about language and feelings, people are actually buying into the relationship pretty quickly. After we've had a meeting, we'll bring some clarity to what you could be doing. After we've produced a report, we'd give me a second, David. Let me see if I can find one. Okay.
And then I'll show you words. Give me a second.
Then I'm going to copy this over.
Right.
from-
This is not going to be a great thing to do on a camera, but it'll kind of illustrate the point if I can get it in focus. Maybe. No, it's not focusing. Maybe I'll hold it closer to me. No, it's not working.
The camera knows it's proprietary to you. It doesn't want to share.
Yeah, it thinks I'm blurring my. Anyway, it's not going to work. So maybe I could do a. No, I won't get a shared screen. Anyway, so the point is that there's a flow that goes here. Is that working? There.
There we go.
Right. And it starts with confusion and uncertainty, and the briefing stage brings enlightenment and vision. Our design strategy brings clarity and focus, not like this is currently. And then we have the solutions meeting that will bring direction and progress. Putting it together brings confidence and belief, and the maintenance program brings purpose and balance. So do you see how I've taken what is a simple process and taken it three levels up? First, the fact that I've got a process document. Most people don't. Second, I've rebranded each step into my own language. So they're not fact-finding, they're not reports, they're my language. And then third, I've brought into play feelings into one document. So many clients come to me and say, we're bought in already because we saw your website, we like this, we're in. Because you're the only one that talks about how we feel, not about what you do. Okay,
that's good.
So Frank, hopefully that's kind of helping your question is how do you start instilling these thoughts with people without even talking to them?
Yeah, no, totally. It's like, because we're our words.
Absolutely. That's the only weapon we have.
Our words that convey emotion, power. It's like
Yeah.
misuse, like, man, devastating.
Our words are our weapons of mass commission.
Now, Roberto has his question up, and then I've got a comment on LinkedIn I want to run by you after
Sure.
Roberto.
Sure, free flowing, whatever it is.
Yeah, my question is, you have a 5 or 6 step process, so I'm guessing you meet the client every time during this process. Is there a fee that's being charged?
We're onto a whole new conversation then. Okay, but you've asked a question, so I will answer it. I charge fees at 5 different steps of the process. Okay, so the first step, the first fee is the first meeting is at my expense. What am I saying by saying that? Let's go off on another tangent. I will finish the question. Problem is, and anyone who knows me knows, my brain is always doing overtime. And so whenever somebody asks me a question, I'll answer 5 others before I actually answer that one. So when you meet a client for the first time, when you're making an appointment, how many people, rhetorical question, how many people say that the first meeting is free? Some people. How many people say nothing about the cost of having a meeting? Probably more. Here's the problem. If you say that the meeting is free, so if somebody says to you, what are you going to charge me to meet you? And you say the first meeting is free, that is one of the most horrible words in the English language. We talked about the power of words. When you say something is free, what you're really saying is, I'm free, I have no value, I am not worth anything, and if you don't turn up, it doesn't matter because I'm free. It's not a positive language, it's a negative language.
It's a 4-letter F word. I'm just throwing that out there.
Thank you. And then the saying nothing, I think, is even worse, because that's not a position of confidence. It's a position of weakness, not to bring into the fact that there is a cost of a first meeting. And so ditch the word free, don't say nothing, be out there confident and positive. And again, we talked about being positive is through the words you use. And be bold and say, and not be asked for it, just say, the first meeting is at my expense. A simple change of language changes the entire dynamic of the conversation. Because what you're really saying when the first meeting is at my expense, I'm worth something, but I'm willing to share it with you. And what it takes advantage of is something called the power of reciprocity. The power of reciprocity says, if I do something for you, you will feel obliged that you should do something back for me. If I invite you to my house for dinner, you're going to feel that you ought to invite me to yours. If I'm going to give you some of my time at my expense, guess what? At some point, you're going to have to return that. And so it's a powerful, strong opening statement. And when I talk about my 5 steps of charging fees, that is one of them, because it's a fee that I choose not to charge. It's at my expense. The next fee, number 2 on my process, is an engagement fee. You have to pay me for me to advise you. You have to pay me to join my club. So it's not a huge number. It's less than $500. It's a one-off fee. You'll never pay it again, but it's a contribution towards back office systems and compliance. And where did I learn that from? Not that I've joined a gym, I should, but when you join a gym, they charge you for the privilege of joining them. I've never understood that, as well as the monthly payments to be a member.
Yeah.
I don't know, if a gym can charge you to join them, to show you around a bit of equipment, I do far more valuable things when I meet a client. So you join me, and it's going to cost you. I'll tell you about how we do this, and nobody ever questions it. Next, first meeting's at my expense. And then if you want to take part, you're going to pay a joining fee. And then based upon what you want advice on, we have a menu of fees. And so I charge a fee for doing research on life insurance to get you the quotations, a separate fee for critical illness insurance, a separate fee for investments, tax planning, pensions, whatever they might be. They're on a menu. Point being, fixed price. And it's transparent, it's clear, it's professional. This is what I charge everybody. So I'm not picking on you. This is what I charge. For that fee, you get a follow-up report that looks into the detail of what you should be doing, specific recommendations of who you should be using, how much it's going to cost you, how we're going to put it together. That fee includes a follow-up meeting, the solutions meeting, we call it. My clients pay that up front. Now, for a lot of people that don't charge fees, that's just going to scare people. So I don't want to say that that's where you jump in at. Where I started my career on charging fees, I used to say there is a fee, but as long as you do enough business with me, I'll waive it. Okay, so that's where we started, because you're positioning value and then choosing not to charge it. Okay, that's the difference between not charging or even discussing the value compared to saying I have a value, quantifying the value, and then saying to a client, let's be professional. If you do enough business with me that generates other fees and commissions, I won't charge you the advice fee. I then went into, I'll return half the advice fee. And now you get enough confidence and strength. You put the money on the table, or I don't do any more work. Okay, it's upfront. And those fees can be big. Next is the implementation fee. And the phrase I use there is, look, the fee I charge you for delivering the advice is covering my cost. It doesn't make a profit. But I want to give you such good advice that you're going to choose to implement it. And if you implement it and it's a life insurance product, I'll earn a commission for arranging it for you. And if it's an investment product, I'll charge a further fee, because we don't know commissions on investments anymore. I'll charge a further fee for placing that investment. Now, all of those things, and this is why it works, is in writing. It's on a menu. And my experience has taught me is that when you talk to people about fees without it being in writing, they think you're making it up. Right? They think that you're just seeing what you can get away with. Whereas if it's in writing, I tell you, nobody questions it. So the $500 fee for joining, not a single person ever has said to me, what's that for? They just pay it because it's on their menu. It's normal to pay it. And so I don't see any reason not to charge it.
Well, if I may, I'm going to summarize this a little bit. What you're doing is you're taking an intangible process. You've made it tangible. You have deliverables. You have illustrations. And I'm not talking insurance illustrations. You're illustrating the process. You have your engagement agreements, you have your fee schedules, you have everything there, and and you're delivering it with high class and high oh, I can't think of the word right now, but you're doing it with you do it with style. I can't think of the proper word, but you have a certain style, a way of delivering on that, and it becomes natural for you, and people assume that is the way it's done because you're teaching them how to do business with you.
Absolutely. It's not. Everyone walks out happy at the end of a meeting, you know, and they say, "Well, yeah, send me the invoice. I want to settle it. I want to start the process with you." And then the maintenance program, we have different levels, and so it starts from DIY. You don't pay me any monthly retainer. I don't do any more work, but if you want to have a meeting, it's going to cost you. Or you pay me a monthly retainer, relatively small, maybe $50 a month. The number's not that important. And you put the obligation on me to see you for a review meeting. At that level, I'll see you once every 2 years. I'll talk about why that's powerful in a second. Pay me a bit more and I'll see you every year. Go up our levels on our maintenance program and pay me more and I'll see you every 6 months. And pay me enough and I'll come and live with you. Now, where did the thought process come from that? Bear in mind, everything that I've talked about is not just random. It is really carefully considered to consider the impact of the words, the impact of the process, and how other people are receiving it. And often another tangent. Put yourself in your client's shoes. What do they experience when they talk to you? Is it pure and utter confidence, or is it self-doubt and non-belief? Be honest. What comes out of your mouth and what's the impact it makes on others? I call it the 3 R's. The language we use has the ability to influence the response we get, the reaction we get from people, to lead to a response that we want from those, to deliver the result we desire. All from words, okay? To deliver the reaction, to create the response, to produce the result. Those are the 3 R's, and now language is the only tool we have to do those things. So the reason why I have the maintenance program, I started to observe financial advisors around the world. And what I realized was that when people meet their clients, they say to them, "I will give you a long-term relationship." By the way, another language, let's go off on another tangent. Never, ever say long-term relationship. Because what's long-term to you is not necessarily the same to the prospect. Their experience of all the other advisors they've met that have promised them long-term is 2 years. Then they move on. I never use the words long-term. I say, I'm offering you a lifetime relationship. That's far more specific to say it's a lifetime relationship. There's no ambiguity to that. So what was happening was I was seeing advisors that had said, yeah, I'll see you every year to have a review. And they'd meet that person with their fingers crossed behind their back that the person would buy something more to top up their insurance or whatever it might be. And maybe they didn't. And then they'll see them the second year with a view to a review, with a view that they would buy some more. And they didn't. And then that long-term relationship died because they felt, I'm wasting my time talking to this person. So the psychology of the sale is that the prospect was thinking, I don't really want to have a meeting with you because you're going to try and sell me something. Right. But take that off the table because you're paying for my time. You're paying for my time on a monthly retainer. You're putting the obligation on me to meet you. Because if I don't meet you, you're going to stop paying me and I will be in breach of the terms that I said I would meet. And it's bizarre, David, it's bizarre. The pressure is off. People buy more on a review meeting because they know they've paid for the review meeting. And therefore, there's not me coming along trying to make them buy something else. They want a genuine review. So the psychology of the sale is really important to understand. How do you price things? How do you deliver those things? And so again, apologies, you asked me a really quick question about how do I position my fees? And there's your answer. It's 5-step fees and or menu driven? Is that what you wanted to hear? I've forgotten who asked the question.
Roberto asked, he gave us a thumbs up there.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Good, my pleasure.
And I can imagine that, especially if you're doing a monthly retainer fee, that, there's a sense that, I'm paying for this. I said I'd meet you every 2 years. I better get my money's worth. So there's that other aspect.
Yeah, and they'll prepare for the meeting. They'll do all the prep. So you send them out some notes in advance and say, I'm going to need this from you for the meeting. They have it already. It's professional. Okay. It's not a life insurance salesman saying, I'd like to meet you, bracket, because I want to sell you something.
Right.
Okay. I'm meeting you because you paid for it. You put the obligation on me and I must deliver.
Wow. Okay. I got this question. It's been pending here on LinkedIn. Bhupinder, you're at the peak of your powers and sought after how do you choose clients to work with based on what criteria? Must they be from Asian community and millionaires to make it commercially viable? Great question. So first, the easy one to answer, no, they don't have to be Asian community. That's where I started from. It was an affinity group, if you like. It was an affluent one, and it made a lot of sense. But no, I'm a mainstream business person. My clients are from every community you can imagine. So that's not any longer the positioning. In terms of quality, what happens after a while is that if you to learn to say no elegantly, you have to price yourself out of people that you don't want to deal with. So I think Frank asked me earlier, how do you actually articulate saying no to somebody? You do that by just making it sound like two things. You can't afford me. And because you can't afford me, I don't want to take your money and give you bad value. Okay. So it's positioning that you are an elite advisor, an elite. And by the way, I am the highest charging financial advisor in the UK by far. Because if I know anyone else who charges more than me, I put my prices up. And that's how I got to being the highest charging. To give some context to that, the average hourly rate, I don't work on hourly rates, but if somebody asked me to, and that's the measure of charges, is around pounds are 150 to 200 pounds an hour. Okay. Mine is 550. That kind of tells you how much more. And so your positioning is from outset, I'm a premium advisor. I use the phrase, I'm a L'Oreal advisor because I'm worth it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I say that to clients as well. There's another phrase I like using. You drink Stella Artois beer in North America?
Yes, we drink Stella.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Good. It's my favorite beer. But their advertising from some time ago, and the younger people may not have seen this advertising, is that they are reassuringly expensive. And that's my branding. I am reassuringly expensive. You will enjoy spending money with me. And so, yes, the branding is such that I price out people automatically who aren't willing to pay a fee or aren't willing to get a premium service, even if they don't know what the fee will be. But those that do want premium service, they're the ones that come to me. So my branding, my positioning is such that, and we'll bring this on shortly, David, into the modern take on media marketing using social media.
Oh, yes.
And the filtering I create that delivers millionaires only. So I don't even have to say it. I'm not that blatant with people, but automatically it prices the right category, and I'll show you how we do that. So yes, in order to operate at an elite level, you've first of all got to recognize the whole world is not my client. And ask yourself another question. What does your branding look like? Does your branding look like you do want the whole world as your client? Because that's not a niche, the whole world. So your niche is either going to be a sector, a product niche, nothing wrong with the product niche, or a marketing niche, again, sector in a way, but it could be occupational. But niche marketing at the right level allows you to charge premium pricing. Shall we talk about the progression in my career?
Oh, please.
Into the day. So I've kind of talked to you about some of the things I do. I talked a little bit about how I got there through step by step. Yeah, like I said, day one, I wasn't charging fees, but I created a process in myself to get to where I am today. But I think what a lot of people find interesting when I'm having these conversations is how I'm generating a minimum of 3 millionaire clients per day, sometimes it's more, at zero cost. And I'm using Facebook to do that. Okay, and I'll share how. I'm almost worried if I started using LinkedIn or Twitter, or dare I say dancing on TikTok, I might get even more. I'm happy where I am, and my staff keep saying to me, keep quiet, because we can't handle what's coming in. So I'm going to give you a longer answer to the current positioning, because I think it helps to understand. So I told you I was a bit of a media celebrity in my own little head of writing for newspapers. Well, that kind of went a bit further. Other journals would then come to me and say, we like the way you write. Would you write for us? So I started writing for other journals. It was dead easy because I just copy the articles I wrote in a Bhupinder magazine. And then I started charging for it, and I was getting paid for writing the same words I was writing elsewhere. Then I got onto mainstream media. So I got onto radio stations, phone-in programs, where I would be the guest expert. I then got onto TV. I even had at one point my own series on a satellite TV channel. And then I was on a couple of phone-in financial advice type programs. There were specific channels. One was called Simply Money and the other one was called Money Channel. And I used to be on this frequently, and there would be typically 3 financial advisors sitting on a couch, taking live questions and answering them. And one day, the owner of that program, this is relevant to the bigger story now, came up to me, Martin Lewis, who's very famous in the UK now as a money guru, good friend of mine. And he came up to me and he said, Bhupinder, I want to tell you something. And I said, what's that? He said, you're our favorite advisor. I said, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. But why do you say that? And he said, because you never answer the question. I was quite taken aback. Like, what do you mean? You never answer the question. But here's the key point he made. He said, you understand media, which is, like, I'm talking to you, David, but actually behind this camera, there's a whole audience. Mm-hmm. And so I might look like I'm talking to you and answering your questions, but I'm conscious. I'm trying to actually answer the question and address what's going on in the minds of other people. And so I was the only one that was on the TV that would do that. And they said others would try and show off their technical knowledge and talk about your question to you without the broader audience, and we would see the viewer numbers fall off. I understood. Okay. I didn't know I was doing that, but it was just my natural style to be kind of embracing. And you've seen it. You asked me one question, I'll go off on talking about something else, but it's kind of relevant to add to the story. So I've taken that with me through my career, is to help people understand more about their financial decisions. And that's the way I'm now using traditional media techniques in a modern social media world. So I don't advertise, but I take part in Facebook groups. This is a great group that's on Facebook. There are thousands of groups on Facebook. Yeah. Get on those groups. Find what's your affinity. Find a group. You obviously don't want to have a group with all due respect, you don't want groups of homeless people, right? That's not your financial niche that's going to make you wealthy. But you want to be on a niche where there are wealthy people. So for example, I'm on property forums, landlord tax forums. I'm on some other community groups, all sorts of places where people will ask questions. And the way these groups operate is that typically someone will ask a question. Now, some of the groups I'm on, they're completely random groups, not even focused.
Yeah.
But people will ask groups about all sorts of things. And if it's, I need a DJ for a wedding, I don't answer. If it's, I'm looking for a plumber, I don't answer. But when it's, I'm looking for, buy some life insurance, I'm looking for a financial advisor, I want to talk to somebody about tax or financial, or pensions, financial related products, you will see typical responses are maybe 100 comments as replies. 90% plus of those will be people that say, here's my phone number, here's my email, here's my website, or a combination of those. And that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. They give you no reason to contact them. No story, no explanation. If you saw what I write, you would fall off your chair, because I will take the question and I will answer it. And my response may be, you know, if you think a typical Facebook response is this, mine is that. You can't see that. Right? Okay. Paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs.
That's how I respond in the group. I type a lot of paragraphs.
Yeah, but mine's 10 times more than that, right?
Okay.
And so it will be answering that person's question, recognizing that other people are reading the question. So I'm educating the broader audience. Mm-hmm. And a half to 2/3 of my response will be educational. But such that, not enough that people can do it themselves, but showing them, you need me to help you to do this. This is such a complicated area. Even if it's life assurance, is not just about the premium. You got to understand about trust. You got to understand about tax. There's so many ways of getting it wrong. Explanation. Then at the bottom, I'm a specialist in estate planning or whatever it might be. Here's my details. Here's some videos of me talking at conferences, etc. So I've taken what I used to do on TV, on print, radio, TV media, and have applied it to social media. And David, I am shocked. I am totally shocked. I am the wrong generation to be good at this. Okay. It's not my space. It is a younger person's space. And yet they don't have the training I got of how to write articles, of how to communicate. And they think it's an instant world that if I give you my phone number, you will feel compelled to call me. Really? The world doesn't owe you anything.
Right.
Right. And I am picking up 3, 5, and if I write a really special piece, 10 inquiries in a day. And I will say for those people, quite often I do wills and trust and those kind of things. If you want a cheap will, don't come to me. There are other people that replied that will be cheaper than me. And that filtering that takes place means that I only get credible clients. Okay, if I didn't filter, I'd get even more. And then I'd be spending time telling them I don't want to deal with them politely. Okay, so you self-filter by branding and positioning yourself as a premium advisor. So the only people that contact me are people with a big enough problem that's going to warrant my time. And some of them call me and they are multi-millionaires and they just say to me, I hope I'm big enough for you. Well, how good is that branding? Right?
Spot on. Yes.
Yeah. And so your branding and positioning has got to be consistent. It's got to be that you then back it up with your process and your documentation, as you alluded to, that when we then have the meeting, it's mind-blowing the conversations we have. And that's how I never met an advisor like this. I didn't know I could do all of these things. So you've got to think out of the box about your own process. You've got to think about outside the box about the advice we give. And then it gets crazy. So these groups now have seen me responding, and the owners of these groups saying, we love what you're doing. Will you run some live webinars for like this? Yep. Okay. They then put them as a guide. So there's one particular site, I've done 5 live webinars on estate planning. They are a permanent guide on their homepage. So when I'm replying, I say, and if you want more information, go and watch those. And then I'm getting other people saying, can you do stuff for us? And then I got a TV channel, said, we love what you're doing. Will you run a series on estate planning for us? So now my article is now linked to those TV programs, third-party endorsement. It's not hard. It's really not hard, but you've got to understand, coming back to something I said earlier on, do you put yourself in the viewer's position, in the questioner's position, as to how they are going to feel based upon what you say and how you say it? Put yourself in that position. Now, would you use the same language? Would you just say, here's my phone number, email, and website? Would that make you want to contact somebody? And I'm shocked. I'm totally shocked that other people that have seen me doing this for years think I'm either mad because I keep repeating myself doing the same thing, or have not cottoned on, then it must be working. So don't be scared of social media. You've got to understand it's just a different forum for delivering the stuff we've always delivered, which is information, education to a huge audience now. Learn how to do that. And don't get me wrong here. I don't write new every time. I have a whole bank of articles, cut and paste them together, a lot easier than it was physical cut and paste with pen and paper.
Yes.
And scissors and paper. And I produce a really quick response. It doesn't take me long to do at all. I have some great graphics that support it. I have some great visuals, like the videos that support it. And my phone keeps ringing.
All right, Alonzo raised his hand, so I got to
Sure.
get my brother from another mother over there in Brooklyn.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Bhupinder. So I actually had a question about the charging of the fees and the increase to comparative advisors. One of the things that I generally do is I'll tell clients, listen, I charge a fee of $300. However, what I'd like to do is offer you this meeting for free and let you spend the $300 on premium. It hasn't quite, I haven't really been doing that for long. So with the 10 people I did, it hasn't quite, maybe 2 of them, it translated to about $150 a month in premium, which, again, I'm not yet MDRT level, but I'll get there. And, I'm wondering, do you think that is an effective strategy, or should I just charge them the fee and call it a day?
I think until you're comfortable to charge the fee and your branding and your value proposition means that you can justify it, I think what you're doing is fine. I think you have to change some of the language. It's what I used to do. And so, you use the word free just now. Yeah, I'd like to give you my meeting free and not charge you $300. I'd like to give you the meeting at my expense so that you don't have to pay the $300 because you're going to love doing business with me. So my fee that I charge, and please don't take this wrong, is to avoid time wasters. People who just want information but aren't serious about their financial future. You seem to be very serious about your financial future. And therefore, I'm asking you to invest some time with me. And if you do sufficient business with me, there'll be a zero cost to you. So it's a position of confidence you need to exude. I'm not saying you don't, but certainly you've got to say I'm worth this. And I do this to avoid time wasters. They'll understand that, because if they're a time waster, they'll walk away. And you don't look like a time waster to me because you look like you're serious about your financial future. You're kind of using psychological words to make them feel, if I say no now, I'm going to be the client. It's going to look like I'm not serious about my own financial future. So I think you've got to work on your script, Alonzo. And I don't mean read a script in front of somebody, but just your whole presentation, and test it out with some people, or try and get them to use your words back to you. And what are you hearing? Practice. But I would carry on doing what you're doing for now.
Also, if I may, Alonzo, it sounded like the way that you phrased it, it sounds like you're bringing up the fee or the premium at the end of a meeting where you've already been discussing the need. And
No, generally it's prior to.
okay, good.
So yeah, no, usually I'll because I've been getting a lot of like Facebook inboxes recently, and so I'm telling people, I'm like, hey, I charge a fee of 300. Ironically enough, the one guy that I got to sit with me is because I was like, I charge this fee because too many people waste my time,
Right.
and then he came and I said, but I'll do it for you. Ironically enough, I said free, but I'm going to change that language to at my expense. To weed out the time wasters, so on and so forth. So thank you. That's very valuable.
No. How do you feel when you just said that? Because it came across completely different when you said at my expense.
It makes a lot more sense now. It feels different because free just seems like, oh, this is willy-nilly. He does this for everybody. But at my expense is like, well, I'm cutting off my arm for you. So don't make me cut off my arm for no reason. So people are more valuable of that.
Yeah, brilliant. Good luck, Alonso.
Appreciate that. All right, Frank, please.
Thank you.
Yeah. The thing going back to earlier conversation you had about messaging and things like that. The traditional thing is to educate to attract. When we're putting out there, what are your thoughts on inspiring content that attracts? In other words, I already know the type of people I want to talk to. I'm not looking to educate them though, because that's what everybody does. I don't want to be the smartest guy. I want to be the most inspiring guy.
And that's how I write. So that's coming back to language. So, I've just said educate, right? But that word education is pretty broad. So it's not technical education, although when you're talking about tax, it can be, but more about using case studies in those answers. Here's what I did for a client with similar circumstances. And in doing that, he created for himself a complete sense of freedom.
Do you actually have a list, since you have a niche? Do you have a niche, a typical list of what they care about?
I do estate planning. And so by definition, if my niche is estate planning, your problem's got to be big enough to warrant you using me. Okay.
What do estate planning clients typically care about? Meaning?
Oh, legacy. Yeah. And no, what I mean by that is, and I'll help them to understand that, is the legacy they leave behind. So actually that's a nice, Frank, you've just prompted another thought in my head of perhaps what would help. And I mentioned it earlier, David, how I run a client meeting with a one-page visual agenda. The visual agenda is in the client's mind. I don't even write it down because most of my meetings are on Zoom now. I'd say 95% of my meetings are on Zoom.
That's great.
Okay. What's the point of me traveling to people? And I'm still closing. I don't like that word. I help facilitate the buying process.
That's right.
Bigger than ever.
I like that idea though, where they come preloaded with, look, these are things I care about. I could care less what you care about, Bhupinder. Are you going to listen to me what I care about? It's like,
but okay, so there's part of the process. I mean, again, I do coaching. So the stuff I'm talking about that I do on a quarterly coaching basis, I'm kind of condensing into this time here. So that, apologies if we're going all over the place. But when a client contacts me, I have a standard email I send them that's made up of several components, first of which is my company brochure and other propaganda, I call it. I even say that because a bit of a giggle.
Yep.
Second is a link to a 1-hour video on creative estate planning. I insist, if you want a meeting with me, you must watch that video. If you don't watch the video, and I have had meetings, and my opening question, did you watch the video? No, I didn't get around to it. Sorry, this meeting's finished. We'll rearrange. But I'm not repeating the content of the video.
I like that. Insist. I like
it. Okay. So yeah, absolutely. I insist that you watch it because it's going to be valuable to you and save time for both of us.
Yeah,
because
I can see that. You got a winnowing process that you're using, and I love it because I only recently implemented that 3 or 4 years ago, and I've been in this thing for like 30 years. So it's like,
well, I wish I'd done it years back. I did it during lockdown. I made this video because I wasn't seeing people. And again, younger people here, do this, right? Because it's part of the educational bit, but you're inspiring them because you're showing them things they never heard of before. And so just to finish it off, the email will then say, here's some homework I need you to do for me. And again, if they won't send their homework, I won't meet them. Okay, so well, lights are gone again.
Nope.
Pause there for a moment.
No problem. No, I've forgotten half of this stuff. I need to create some stuff. I got homework to do.
Yeah, and I call it homework. You need to do your homework. And it will be a list of assets, liabilities, copy of your will, all of that kind of stuff. But here's a good one that I do. Can you sketch out for me your family tree? It's huge when you do that. It's huge, because what you're getting then is their entire upline, downline, sideline of that family. That's a prospecting list. That is a hot prospecting list, because if you look after that person, and in my family tree, it's not just the names. I want to know their ages, their occupation, their health. I want to know about them. And at the end of a conversation, so what we've talked about, do you think this will affect your brother Joe? Would be interested in this. And you know, the estate planning, we've talked about you passing down to your children. Dare I remind you, you're the child of John. Now that you know how to leave your legacy to your children, how's John going to leave his legacy to you? Don't you think you should receive it in the same way? It's huge, huge. And nobody ever says no when you ask for a family tree.
I love it.
Okay, some of them will handwrite it. Some of them will put it on a Excel or a Word document. Best one I had, somebody sent me a PowerPoint presentation with photos of all the members.
That's great.
Yeah, but if you don't ask, you won't get that.
That's right. That's right. Real quick, how long are we running here? Because I want to stay on.
I will
3 days?
run as long as Bhupinder has time.
Yeah, I think it's 3 days.
Okay.
I'm flying to Bangkok on Friday. I could go straight from the office.
I'm going to clear my calendar then. I'm clearing my calendar.
That is what we're going to wind up soon. But I have so much to share that I love sharing.
There's a lot to share. And you got my mind going with that one because, look, my church, I'm part of the LDS church. We have familysearch.org. We own that space. And now I got something I need to cultivate that idea. Okay, you got me going on this one.
Good. And then I'll say, and here's some sample documents of the kind of things we do. So I'll send them some sample investment reports, some reading on investment strategies, whatever it might be, how we do cash flow for people. And I don't insert everything. Based upon the initial conversation, I'll then just take out the bits that are not relevant. Then I send them a couple of links of videos of me speaking on YouTube, so they can get a bit more flavor of who I am. But get this as well. If they won't reply, if they won't watch the video and do the homework, that is another filter. Because if they'll do their homework and watch the video, these people are serious. And I've spent no time with them and they want to do business with me. By the time I meet them, it's like, let's just do this. I get it. I get the video. I get who you are. Just let's do the plan. The one-page agenda, then we're done. So when I meet them,
I'm sorry, I did get a question that Bhupinder shared his initial vision. Could he share his current vision, 5-year plan?
My current 5-year plan is pretty much to carry on exactly the way I'm doing, because I am loving life. I'm loving every single day. And the next 5 years, I am dangerous. Because this social media thing, I've just completely cracked it. I'm not bragging, but I just know. Because whenever I did a speech last week at the Personal Finance Society, and the question I asked the audience, who's successfully using social media to generate quality and quantity of leads? No one put their hands up. Not a single person put their hands up. And yet there I am turning them away. And so my next 5 years is to really consolidate what I've got, to bring in more members of my team so that I can just do marketing work and then support growth in younger advisors to learn what I'm learning, what I'm sharing with you, and how to run client meetings. On my personal side, my kids are now adults, and I want to see them getting off into more success in their own life, certainly with a view to marriage of at least one, if not both of them, by 5 years' time. My son is 24. He's in financial services. He is thinking about joining me. I don't want him to. I want him to be out there working for an insurance company on the back office side of things, learning stuff outside. And he's going to then hopefully come into a business where his dad's done all the hard work and he can come in and just take over the brand. And then I can sit back a bit more relaxed, spend more time doing marketing because I love doing marketing, and to go around the world speaking at conferences, helping younger generation of advisors to become more successful, learn from my last 30 years and grow and love this business as much as I do. Is that a fair vision?
Beautiful. I love it.
It's awesome.
Okay. Do we have time to do an agenda?
Let's do it.
So I kick off the meeting, the client meeting, asking a few questions. I mean, the opening question, in the time that we're going to have together now, what needs to happen for you to feel that this is a good use of your time? Open question. Okay. They're going to tell you, why am I here? Write down objectives, and at the end, go back and say, and put it on a piece of paper. At the end of the meeting, go back. Did we cover all the things that you said was going to be what you would feel happy to cover? Yes, we did. Okay, so they're telling you, you do it, you deliver it, you tell them you deliver it. The agenda. So let's put some structure around this conversation. So I'm going to talk to you, David, as if you're my client, my prospect. Okay. So David, thank you for the background to yourself, your dreams, your aspirations. We've had that conversation. You know, I describe myself as a financial architect, and I want to use some architectural language to describe our agenda for us today. David, if you were building a house and you put up the walls of this house and you capped it off with the roof, what did you forget to do first?
I'm thinking the foundation.
The foundation.
You didn't
right?
say anything about that. Yeah.
Yeah. You wouldn't put up the walls and put up the roof without putting in some strong, secure foundations first, would you? Because then this is a flimsy structure. If the worst happened, your house collapses. Well, David, right now, the walls of your financial home represent your savings and investments, and is capped off with the roof of your retirement or your financial independence program. But David, I'm sorry to say, you have a flimsy structure because you've not yet put in the foundations you need to put in to secure that property, that financial home. So I want to talk to you about financial foundations. And in my world, your financial foundations have 3 levels. The deepest level of your foundation, so I'm just reading some of these comments. Thank you, Frank. Thank you for your questions. The deepest level of foundation is your end of life planning. We all have an end of life, David. You know, a lot of people, I use property language to describe it, is that we don't have a freehold on life. We have a lease. The problem is we don't know the length of that lease because that's the man upstairs who's going to decide the length of that lease. You know, medicine, treatment, it may extend our lease occasionally. Those of us that believe in reincarnation, that's the renewal of the lease. But let's work on this life right now. So one day the lease is going to get terminated. And that's not our choice. It will happen. The only choice we do have is the shape of the planet we leave behind. Do we leave a financial mess for our family, or do we leave everything in good financial order? And for those many, many people that choose not to talk about it, I'm very blunt with them. And I say to them, by not talking about it, you are actively choosing to leave a mess. So I'm glad we're having this conversation because that's clearly not you. You recognize you want to leave the planet in good financial order. So that's about having a good will with appropriate trusts and powers of attorney in place. Now, if you don't do those, engage with somebody that can, okay? And the point being, I'm talking about things that everybody needs to do. You can't argue with me, okay? I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to say, isn't this premium fantastic? I'm just saying, you need to do this, right? And so you get agreement. Yes, I need to do that. And if I can do it with you, great. If not, I'm going to refer you to an accountant, lawyer, whatever they're going to do. The middle level of your foundation, I call that your dreams protection level. So David, you kindly shared with me earlier on your dreams, your vision for your next 5-10 years of you and your family's life.
Yeah.
But David, what if you fell under a bus? What happens to your vision and your dreams? Should those dreams stop with you? Or should they be supported as a foundation for your family to carry on living and enjoying those dreams and aspirations? Should they die with you?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'd like to make sure that the wishes I have for my family continue, if that's at all possible. Yes, I do
Leading
want
question,
that.
right?
Yeah.
And if your spouse is sitting there, are you happy that those dreams would die because your husband died? Right? No. Okay. So now I can bring in the subject of protection without even talking about protection.
Right.
Okay. Because it's not about protection, it's about dream protection. Sorry, it's not about insurance, it's about dream protection. That's what I do. Then and I cover that off and go through examples and premiums and whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
And the top level of your foundation is tax planning. But I cut that level in half because there's tax during your life and being as tax efficient as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's tax at the end of your life, your inheritance tax or your estate duties.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to talk about those. And once you've done that, you're done. We don't, just like foundations in a house, you never go back and check them unless there's some subsidence that's taken place. The same with the foundations that I'm putting in place. Once we've done them, we're done. You do not need to look at those again. We're just going to concentrate on building your financial walls and your future financial retirement roof. Unless there's some subsidence, that's when we'll go back and revisit your foundations. Does that make sense that we go through this? Yeah.
That's perfect. I love that.
Okay.
And well, I'm going to reference back to our meeting we had with Sanjay last month, because both you and Sanjay you're really focusing on the feelings and the feelings that people want to have as a result of going through your processes and such. And I have a feeling we miss that a lot. We focus on disturbing people,
that's
and we seem to
keep relationship.
And we keep the focus there, as opposed to showing that there's at least a sense of relief, let alone happiness and fulfillment in the fulfilling of a legacy and such. So I'm noticing this trend, and so I'm trying to adjust myself, because I could disturb people, but if it hasn't been working as well for me.
Can you imagine, David? You meet a client, you do some business with them, and a year later and you've scared them into buying something. Okay, and you meet them you call them a year later and say, look, can we have a review meeting? And the client says, yes, David, sure. I'd love to meet you again. You really scared me last time. Let's do it again. It's not going to happen. Or can you imagine this client wanting to refer you and saying, oh, you've got to meet David. He'll really scare you.
Damn.
It's not conducive to relationships. Okay. We use positive language to talk about their dreams and aspirations, and all we're doing is protecting those with foundations. Far more powerful. Okay, and anyone who's selling on fear is selling once on a product. They are not selling a relationship. Relationships are not built on fear. Sales are built on fear.
Well, I believe that there can be some fear in there, but it has to lead to where they want, to what they want. So there should be a moderate amount of discomfort, but you can't leave them there, and they can't be.
No, but the starting point is, what's your dreams and aspirations?
Yeah.
Okay. And should those dreams and aspirations die because you died? That's a different type of fear.
Yeah.
Because it's about a fear of. I mean, it's love, okay, as opposed to fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love my family, I fear what might happen if I didn't make it.
Yeah.
But you got to start from the love. If you don't love your family, and I say you fell under a bus, you say, who cares then?
Okay. Well, if they don't care, then I don't have to care either. But
yeah, I'll just walk out. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But once you get them bought into their dreams and aspirations, and all we're doing is the foundation to protect it, how could they say no? How can they say no?
All right, I got some homework to do. So,
This business is all about psychology. Do you know that? It's all about psychology. I've had so many clients in the meeting who said to me, "You're not a financial advisor, you're a psychologist." Because you get under their skin and you get them talking about things they've never spoken to anyone about, and they like it. But that's been useful, David, and I hope for everybody else that's been watching that stayed with us. And even if you didn't stay with us, you might watch the repeat. I've enjoyed myself. I'm sorry if I've talked too much or gone off on different tangents. It's because I love what I do. I have the best job in the world, and I want you to be in the same position that I am too.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. But we've had a good dozen people also watching on other forms of social media. So we've had, I don't know, maybe 20 people watching at one time. But thank you so much for your time. I got a lot out of it. I got to go back and do some homework before I take off for my trip this week. But thank you so much. And we'll continue to keep in contact. And we'll leave it at that. And everybody, the recording will be in social media. You'll find it, I guess, on my LinkedIn page. You'll find it in the Facebook group, and you find it on my YouTube channel. So you will be able to find it and continue to go back and reference it. Thank you so much. And by the way, real quick, your book. Promise, we're going to talk about that.
I need to do a reprint. I sold out.
Okay.
So I put my email address on the chat. My first name, Bhupinder, BHUPINDER, at Anand Associates, ANAND Associates, plural.com. Bhupinder at AnandAssociates.com. Drop me an email if you'd like to know more. And I've written a motivational book called Smashing the Glass Ceiling. And I'll be happy to quote you for sending that. Currently, it's not on Amazon. One of my things to do.
Okay.
But that's not stop me getting it to people around the world. We can get that organized. I just hope you've enjoyed it. And I don't think you can implement everything I've talked about, and that would be crazy for anyone to think so. But if you can implement one idea consistently, you're going to have a fantastic 2023.
I'm looking forward to it. No, the ideas are going just for me here. So anyway, I got your emails showing up on the screen here, which doesn't do on Zoom, but anyway, technology is wonderful. So anyway, repeat the name of the book, please. It's called Smashing the Glass Ceiling, Breaking Through to Your Personal Barrier, your personal barriers to success. There's a listing on Amazon. You just don't have anything there. So it is there. It's just not there.
I've learned something because I didn't even know that.
Okay. No, because I've got it in my wish list. I keep waiting for something to pop up. So
no, you prompted me to do something now as well.
Okay, wonderful. So anyway, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and cut it off because otherwise we'll just keep talking. So wonderful. We'll see you guys on social media. But thank you so much for your participation, your questions. This was wonderful. Thank you so much.
And see everybody at the MDRT annual meeting in Nashville in June. I'm doing a focus session speech for sure, and possibly a main platform and a connection zone. Fingers crossed.
Oh, wonderful. That would be great. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.